Kia ora ngā. So, this is a bit of video I've been meaning to do for a while, and not necessarily on the robot that you would have seen in the thumbnail when you clicked on this video. But what I'm going to talk about today is children's robots and my impressions of some of what I've found so far. So what I'm going to start with is my first robot. So to a certain extent, I suppose you could consider drones to be a robot. So I bought a couple of drones a couple of years ago, and they served a really good purpose for the learning that we were doing. We were looking at flight and we were looking at space, and they were really good models of what to do with flight. And they're more flying craft. They didn't have like a set program that they ran, with one exception, and that was the AirHog. Can't think of its name now. It's like a spherical shape, and it had a whole bunch of pre-programmed. Hey mate, it had a whole bunch of pre-programmed flight patterns in it, and so you waved your hands across some infrared sensors, and it did certain things. And I would probably consider that a robot, a flying robot, because it wasn't really a drone. I wasn't necessarily under control of it unless I waved my hand and it did something. The next robot that I got was part of that study. It was space, and it was a mechanical robot. So it's classified as a robot because that's how they sell it. And it was this, and it was really cool for what it was. It's just a very simple robotics kit, and essentially what it is it's just a robot that walks. And what it was meant to do was it had magnets on its belly and magnets on its feet, and the way that they sold it was that it would walk up your refrigerator, basically. And I'm really lucky in this classroom. The classroom's made out of a metal skin, and so I bought it with the purpose that it might be able to walk up the walls, because that'd be a cool thing to learn about, cool thing to make, cool thing to play with, and a cool thing to watch it do its job. But it didn't work. The magnets were far too powerful for it, and the motor and the gear mechanism wasn't strong enough, so it couldn't lift its belly off the wall, and it'd just get stuck and go. But it is what it is, and we learned a whole bunch of stuff from it, and we did a whole bunch of experiments with it. Could we get it to climb stuff? How mobile was it? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this year, I've really started to explore with my class technology and coding and all that sort of stuff. I did a lot of it last year. I started to dip my foot in the water of coding. We bought a Raspberry Pi, et cetera, et cetera. And if you're into really more advanced robotics, then a Raspberry Pi might be the thing to go for you. But this year I thought I'd get a few more technical gizmos and gadgets to try out. And so this is kind of really my impressions of the whole thing. So the next robot that I bought was a robot called an Edison robot. And they're really, really popular in a lot of schools, and a lot of retailers will sell them in class sets. So you could go to PB Tech and say, can I get a class set of Edison robots, and buy 10 in one go in like a big box. I didn't need 10, I just wanted one. And so it cost, from PB Tech, one of my favorite places to go, it cost me $69. And how Edison works is, you can see there it's got Lego studs on it. And basically it's not made by Lego, it's made by I want to say the Edison Corporation or something like that, but it's designed in Australia. It's quite a cool toy. It's very hard wearing, and what happens is it's got infrared sensors in the front and a sensor in the base. And what happens is when you get the manual that you can download offline, and that manual has a whole bunch of barcodes in it, and you push the record button there, and it records the barcode, and that barcode has a whole bunch of preset programs built into the Edison that tells it what to do. I'm live on YouTube. Yeah, quick, because I'm live on YouTube.
Oh.
You're gonna get me in trouble, mate. And it's got a whole bunch of preset. Careful with the pōwhenua. That's it, good boy.
Bye.
Bye. I'll see you later. A little cameo. now what was it? Oh, it's got a whole bunch of preset programs in it, and based on what the barcode it runs over tells it what it needs to do. And there's some really cool presets in it, like you can use your infrared television remote to turn it into a remote control car. And so you preset each barcode to a direction using a button on your remote. And if you push that button, it'll go in that direction, forward, back. It'll do spins, it'll turn left and right and do all kinds of other stuff. So that there's a lot of cool things like that in that way. Now, one of the other cool things about it is it's super resilient and hard wearing. And I also liked about it that it's got the Lego studs on it. And so my initial reason for buying this robot is I went to my local toy store and they had just released Lego Mario before all the ads came out. It was like their pre-release, the big sale just before, probably about 2 weeks before the second lockdown in Auckland happened. And so I went out and bought Lego Mario. I questioned the man first. I said, "Can you code Lego Mario?" And he said, "No, but it comes with an app." And I was like, "Oh, that doesn't really do me any good because I can't really justify buying that for the class if it's just a toy." And then I went away and had a really good think about it. And I thought, there is probably some stuff I can do with it. And it's only a matter of time before people figure out how to hack the computer inside. So maybe I need to go and get one before things go nuts. And so I went and bought one. So that's my Lego Mario. Lego Mario time. And then I had because he's in his cat suit. He's very adorable in his cat suit. Yeah, see you later. I'll do probably a whole episode on Mario himself, but my logic is if I wanted to buy one of these to work with one of these, so I could enhance the Mario game by using Edison together with Mario, because I can put some of the bricks on top of Edison and make Mario drive around. And so now this Edison is called Yoshi because Mario rides around on Yoshi. And so I'm still in the process of working out a whole bunch of other experiments. I'm still doing a lot of experiments, with these two together, because that was the primary reason for me to buy it for myself. But I'm introducing these two to my students now. One of the downsides is I don't like the drive system on it. Now, there's a really good reason why the drive system is the way it is, because if you buy multiple of these robots, you can attach them together to make big projects, like some of the ones that they advertise as making cranes and stuff like that, and the wheels run together to make things move. And essentially, it's like a Lego Technic set, but you can control it with like TV remotes, and you can program it and code it to do the things that you want it to do. And there are smaller kits that you can put attachments onto Edison to make them better. But my biggest thing is just the drive system, because the wheels, I would call it a rear wheel drive. If you put something too close to the sensors, like Mario, for instance, the sensors go a bit nuts and they won't work properly. So you put it quite far back and it wants to do wheelies because all the weight is at the back. And so it wants to tip over. So, I mean, it's a little thing. And the other thing too, is it doesn't have very much clearance off the ground. So when you do build, like I built a big rig to try and hold Mario on the back so we could do some experience running over the barcodes for Mario. And it didn't work out too well because there was so much weight at the back. I'm still working on some experiments to try and get these two working together really perfectly to make it interesting and worth my while. But I buy the stuff as much for myself as I buy it for the students. I would recommend it. It's a cool entry-level robot. It's very interesting. It's a bit pricey if you're a kid and you're buying it for yourself. If you want to ask for mum and dad for it for Christmas and you don't have Lego Technic sets or something like that, this might be a good intermediary option, because it's essentially like you can make it a remote control car, and it does all its own robotic things, but you can use it to do Lego Technic sort of stuff, like build things around it with Lego and then code it to do stuff. So me and my son made a spaceship and had the spaceship driving along the living room floor. So it's cool in that way. The next robot I'm going to talk about is this robot here. And the reason why I'm talking about these robots is they're really comparable. This is, I call it Astrid. We won't go into that too much, but this is what's called a Tobii 2 robot. There's a Tobii robot, and it's basically a mechanical robot similar to this one here. This one we call Blue Gator. So there's a mechanical version. Tobii 1 is very much essentially like this. You turn it on and it does stuff. It just goes meow, 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 meow. And it's got like I think it's got like an infrared board inside of it. But what makes Tobii 2 different is that Tobii 2's processor, I suppose you'd say, its brain, is a microbit. And I'm a really big fan of microbit. And so this has been on my wish list for a really long time. And so I bought it for this purpose of plugging the microbit into Tobii 2 and doing some experiments with it. And I thought it would be a good companion to my Edison robot because they both run on infrared. And so having done a number of experiments now, I've found some various issues, and I'll get to that at the end. Now, the reason why I like this one, this is I bought this at Jaycar, the electronics shop, and I'm a big fan of Jaycar as well, and it cost essentially the same as Edison. So Edison was $69.90, and this was, I think, $67.90. So it's very comparable. Now, Edison comes straight out of the box, like a tiny little box, ready to go. And you got a barcode printed on the box already, ready for it to show you to do stuff. Tobii came in a giant box, and it was like a modeling kit set with, like, you know how it's on a sheet of plastic bits and you got to cut them out and put them together. So I had to assemble the whole thing, the gear mechanism, everything. So, and that way it was a little bit frustrating and it was a little bit stressful because you've really got to make sure that you do everything properly or it's not going to work. And in that way, I found that where Edison is really tough and resilient, this is quite flimsy, and I've got to be really careful with it because I worry if it fell off a desk or a table, it'd just break. Which is one of the downsides of it. Now, as a pro, I think it's a little bit better in its ability to maneuver because it's a little bit more all-terrain. It's a little bit higher off the ground. It's really, really slow and cumbersome by comparison to Edison. Edison's quite zippy. He's like a sports car, a rear-wheel sports car. But Tobii can walk over multiple terrain, and I've tried it over a few things like walking over the top of books and things like that. It can't obviously scale large objects because it's really top heavy and will tip over, but it can like go over and just climb over things. One of the other things I found is it's really, really, and the kids have said this too, it's very noisy because of the gear mechanisms inside, and sometimes because it's a kit set, the gears don't quite meet up properly sometimes, and you'll get a grinding noise like a, and then before it clicks back into gear and keeps going. That being said, there's kind of like a old school charming appeal to that. It does get irritating after a while, but initially you're like, oh wow, that's kind of cool. But I am quite fond of this particular robot. Some of the experiments that I want to try out, later going down the line is attaching a GoPro to the top of this. And I've already tried some of my GoPro mounts to see if it'll fit properly. There's a little bit of a gap, but I might have to build it up and then put the GoPro mount on the top and then use it to drive around objects, because you can remote control this too using your cell phone. And if I can put a GoPro on it, then I, in theory, because it's all terrain and I'm not too worried about driving this over grass and ground, because most of the electronics are up here, off the ground and away from, if it walked in water by mistake, it wouldn't be that bad. Then you could drive it under buildings and stuff like that, just to do kind of cool experiments like that. I thought that would be kind of cool. One of the things that I did is I tried Tobii and microbit together, and so I did an experiment where you can code the microbit to do a task called follow me. And so the infrared tracking on this follows another object, and then I coded Edison to avoid objects. And so when it avoids objects, it drives around and uses its sensors to not bump into stuff. And so then what I did is I figured that this was too low for Toby to pick up. So what I did then is I built a tower on the top of Edison with Mario sitting on top making funny noises. And so these two were driving around while I tried to get this one to follow. But the problem was that this was too fast for poor Toby to catch up. Toby couldn't walk fast enough to follow it. So then I tried a different thing, and I tried to get, I coded Edison to be a remote control via a TV remote using infrared, and that created other problems where the infrared scanning of follow me interfered with this. So I'm going to try some other experiments later on, potentially where I can, because if you can code this to follow infrared, my theory is I'm going to see if I can code Toby to give Edison instructions via infrared, and then Toby controls Edison. So by proxy, Toby becomes a remote control to Edison. So you've got a robot controlling another robot. So I've got like a lot of different experiments that I want to run with these. So the moral of the story, would I get these again if I had the chance? Now, they both kind of fill different roles for me. And the educational value is comparable and different. They're essentially the same kind of a thing. Like you can do block coding onto Edison via USB cable, and you can do block coding on Toby via USB cable. They're both mobile robots. They both have a whole bunch of set programs that they can run that are entertaining and fun for kids. They're very both comparable in price. Now, Edison is definitely more for your kid that's interested in Lego. And I would say it's probably more for, like, it's perfect for my age group, but I would say it's also really good for younger age group. My older son and my littler son, they're 5 and 3, and they still really enjoyed playing with it. And after I showed them what to do and they got the hang of it, they had a good time playing with it. In regards to Toby, this is way out of their league. I would say like a 10 or an 11-year-old at the youngest with this, and they might need parental help to actually do the assembly required to put Toby together just in the first place. And then in regards to the coding part of it, there's a lot there as well, because a lot of the stuff to just get the basics to get Toby to work is a lot of file transferring, and it's like passing files essentially to a USB stick, and it's hard in that way. But once you get it going, and particularly the function of using your cell phone to do remote control, I thought was really, really cool. The only aside from that is getting all the, you've got, just to get you can't download the app from the App Store, I don't think. I think you've got to download the app from, I had to find all the files on a YouTube video. It's a little bit strange, but I got the whole thing to work, and I am quite chuffed with it. But if I think I wasn't here, my students might have a hard time trying to figure it out, and it might be a bit of a frustrating thing. So by that comparison, I would say like Edison is the winner. But if you've got patience, like Toby 2 is a pretty cool toy as well. So I just thought I'd put that up there because I haven't really seen much feedback on the two of these devices outside of the manufacturer. There's a lot of really cool videos by both companies, by both manufacturers on what their robots can do. And this is used a lot in schools, and this is used a lot by hobbyists. So that's a lot of the comparison too. This is very user friendly for schools and teachers. This is for the kids who are really, really serious about robotics. So, I mean, that's just a kind of a a red flag right there. I hope this was helpful to you or someone that you know that's interested in this sort of stuff. Once I really get into a little bit more of the experiments that I'm going to be conducting with them, particularly this one where I'm going to be using it as like a rover. I'll put some stuff up, especially once I get the GoPro attached to it somehow or another. So for now, ka kite anō. I'll see you next time on Mr. Ashley's Place. In the next video, maybe I might talk a little bit about Mario and how I found Mario. I generally don't kind of do these review videos, and I don't see it as a review video per se, but more of a feedback. Some of the review videos can be slightly biased, and so it's good hearing from someone or their actual true experiences of a device or a piece of technology or a toy. So yeah, like I say, hopefully this helps someone. But for now, ka kite anō, and I will see you next time on Mr. Ashley's Place.